Welcome back. Good Monday morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Monday, March 30th. It is 7 a.m. on the button on the East Coast. Oil prices are climbing once again this morning, even though stocks are at the highs of the morning. Dow Industrials up 250 points, but take a look at Brent hovering around $115 a barrel right now, on track for a record monthly surge, with Brent at 115, up 2%, and crude oil at 101.65, up better than 2%. Crude is now up better than 50% this month as markets price in escalating geopolitical tensions with the war in Iran. The national average for gasoline prices also up better than $1 in the last month. $3.99 a gallon for regular gasoline. Joining me now is S&P Global's Vice Chairman Daniel Yergin. Dan, great to have you back. And of course, you were just coming off of your wildly successful conference last week, the CERA Energy Conference, and you did on stage 39 interviews. Among those interviews was the CEO of Chevron, Mike Wirth. He said that the impact of the Iranian conflict is not being fully priced into the oil market. Can you talk to us about your observations and also what Mike Wirth told you?
Yes, I think what Mike is saying, Mike is looking at the physical realities of oil, not what the price of oil going up and down on futures markets and so forth. And he's looking, like other CEOs, at what are the constraints there, what are going to be the difficulties now and in the future. And when they look at that, they say, there's more risk, and I think as a CEO, his job, as with the other CEOs, is really to be looking at what the physical risks to supply are. And they see that this is an unprecedented situation. There's never been a disruption like that, and it flows through the whole system. And Mike made that point. I think the other CEOs in their own ways also made it, that their physical risk is greater. The constraints are greater when you have a system as disruptive as this is. It's not only the volumes of oil, but it's actually all the other things around the tankers and the movements and the threats that add to the risk.
Well, it's a great point because you're seeing damage to some of their infrastructure within the Middle East. Dan, what else are your observations from your conference last week? We were all watching you on stage talk to so many people, from oil to chemical CEOs as well.
Yeah, I think what came out is that this is not something that's, even if there was peace tomorrow, the next day, this is not something that's going to be unwound quickly, that it could take 2/3 of a year, actually, one of the CEOs said, in order to fully get back to normal if things stop now. And you pointed to the destruction because, of course, the focus has been rightly on the Strait of Hormuz, in the way that the Iranians are really trying to turn it into a canal that they control, and that they can extract revenues and decide who goes through and who doesn't go through. But also what's been mounting is the destruction on this vast amount of infrastructure that is so critical to the world economy, that the Iranians have been attacking up and down the Arab side of the Persian Gulf, and repairing that is going to take time. It's oil, it's natural gas, it's petrochemicals. The list goes on. It's things that people don't think about. Helium, which is used in manufacturing semiconductors. And another one is fertilizer. The Gulf is a major source of fertilizer, aluminum. All of those are being hit, and that means disrupting supply chains, sending prices up, and particularly right now, Maria, hitting hard at Asia, because Asia has been so dependent on oil and gas flows from the Persian Gulf. But it's going to radiate around the world. And, you know, you see that you pointed to that gasoline, 1 cent less than $4 right now in the United States.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Asia, because there are also some new rules in place in Asia. I mean, China is putting some restrictions in place as a result of this. What can you tell us on that?
Well, China has been an exporter of oil, refined products, including sending some of those refined products to California. They're now restricting their exports of oil. Other countries are saying, you know, work at home, work only 3 days a week, leave your car at home, take public transportation. And some of the countries are really in a panicky situation. Japan gets over 90% of its oil from the Persian Gulf. It has domestic reserves, which it's beginning, strategic reserves beginning to release. But and the disruption of gas supplies is very important to the region.
Of course. Now, global shipping is obviously facing the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz after Saudi Arabia diverted a majority of crude oil shipping through the Red Sea and its Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Yemeni Houthis, however, are stepping up attacks. They have joined the fight over the weekend. This is raising more questions here. What's your take on the Houthis? They said they launched ballistic missiles at Israel and would continue operations until the strikes on Iran and the proxy militant groups such as Hezbollah in Lebanon stop, Dan. But at the same time, the Saudi pipeline that bypasses Hormuz hit 7 million barrel goal last week. So with the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down, what's your take on the Red Sea and the threat there and that Saudi pipeline?
Well, the Saudis built that pipeline system during the Iran-Iraq war when they saw that there was, a threat to the Strait of Hormuz, and it was a very smart thing to do so that they can move an additional 5 million barrels a day in addition to what they're already moving to the Red Sea, get it in tankers. But what you point out, Maria, that's the Bab el-Mandeb. That's the other strait. And that one is only 18 miles wide at its most narrow. And who controls that? The Houthis, who are the dearest and closest allies of the Iranians and most powerful in the entire world. They closed the Red Sea for about 2 years. A couple of years ago, and they could certainly do that again. They've had a truce with the Saudis, but that could change. And so that adds to the vulnerability and the sense of risk. To think that the world is as dependent as it is on these two very narrow straits, which are basically controlled by Iran or by Iran's most beloved ally.
Now, President Trump is expecting this to be temporary, but you mentioned some other markets facing severe disruptions as well because of this conflict. I mean, you just mentioned beyond oil. You said that the Strait blockage is hitting supplies of fertilizer and helium, which, of course, impacts semiconductors, agriculture, manufacturing. You've got the price of urea, a form of nitrogen fertilizer, up better than 50% since this conflict began. What did you learn about that? I know Jim Fitterly of Dow Chemical was with you, and he talked about 25% of